So let's face it. So most of my listeners are a menopausal woman, may or may not be doing hormone replacement. A lot of them may be, or they're exploring bioidentical hormone replacement. And we can't necessarily replace like the estrogen because there's no longer ovarian production. But a lot of these ingredients have been found to help reduce a lot of the symptoms and other things that we associate with menopause. Do you have some favorite sort of combinations that you like to do in these cases?
Yes, and actually, if you haven't seen the documentary, I highly recommend it
Yes.
because our filmmaker had PCOS, and she said, "Okay, I want to do an experiment. I want to try these and just kind of see what happens." And she agreed not to change her diet, not to take any other supplements, but to only take two products. One was Chase Tree, which
Hmm.
Chase Tree is wonderful to help balance progesterone and estrogen,
Yep.
Vitex. And then the other one was a complex called HPO Balance, which it works on the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis. And those are the only two plants she took. And she was making these beautiful mocktails and all kinds of, ways to take them. So even though the directions say, either put directly in your mouth or put in a little water, she got creative and started doing this. And in 7 months, so 7 months later, her testosterone, which was, I think, 79 or 80, came
Hmm.
down to the normal range of 57. And so her PCOS, all of her symptoms went away
That's awesome.
and everything came into balance. So for sure, chase tree, raspberry is another one. Such a
Yeah.
beautiful plant for women for just about any stage of their evolution. And then HPO balance. And then we have another one called change of life, which is wonderful for women going through menopause. So those are my four favorites that I use with women. And in addition to that, we have things like osteoporosis, insomnia, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So we have plants that work with that as well. Mountain pine is an amazing plant for osteoporosis. And oftentimes, what we have found is with osteoporosis, there's a heavy metal component. And
Hmm.
so these are one of the best heavy metal chelators of any plants.
Okay. I did not
They're
know that about
really good.
pine.
Yeah, really good about cleaning out the bones and all of that, and we've had really good results for osteoporosis, osteopenia, things like that.
Oh, that's impressive. Yeah, I had no idea about mountain pine. That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
really great. And now you mentioned it and sort of glossed over it, but you have a documentary that's won some awards. So everybody, she's shy. She's written a book too. So you wrote a book, and then you tell us about the documentary, and then tell us about the book because I think that's really important because this is going to be new information for most of my listeners. They didn't even
Okay.
realize stem cell exists in plants. You know what I mean? So let's talk about it. So tell us about your documentary.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
what happened so here I bought the company in 2019, and I was, in my studies with the grandmothers, I actually started this is kind of strange, but I started channeling the plants. So what that means is I can sit with somebody and I will start hearing the plants talk to me. Okay. So I put it out there. Yes, it's a little weird if it's the first time you're hearing it, but it's really just a mention that I'm very connected to plants. And so one day I was meditating, and what I heard was nature does not like to be owned. So you think about us, we own land, we own homes, we own these things. We use that word a lot. And what it told me was nature wants you to be the steward of these plants. So you are the steward. And so I sat with that for a while and I said, what does that mean? What does it mean to be a steward? So to be a steward means to be a caretaker, to be responsible. And what's fascinating about plant stem cells is if you go back in history, in 1158, a woman named Hildegard of Bingen actually wrote a book called Physica. And in there, she mentions the buds of 8 trees. She was considered the first naturopathic doctor. In this book, Physica, she's saying go outside and get sunshine, eat healthy, drink clean water. So she's saying all the things, and she writes about the buds of these 8 trees. Then you cannot find any research, no literature for 800 years. And then in 1958, they reappear in Belgium, of all places. So these are known in Europe and really hadn't made their way here. So I sat with this notion of how do I become the best steward? And I said, oh, I need to write a book, but I want to write it in a way that people can understand it. There are about 10 books in publication still on these. The medical term is called gemotherapy. Gemo means bud. And they're all either way too scientific, or they don't make any sense, or they only talk about 38 plants. And I said, okay, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book. And then I said, what else could I do? And I said, I want to do a documentary. And so the documentary is called Nature Provides, which is also the name of the company, The Ancient Wisdom of Plant Stem Cells. And it's really about my health journey, healing from, stage 4 cancer. And it's also about what these plants are, the science behind them, and how they work and why they worked. And when I go back to, 10 years ago, I look at least 15 years older than I do now. And that is evident of the toxic burden that I was carrying. And so that toxic burden, I don't carry it anymore. And I have light in my eyes. And, I'll be 60 in December and I feel like I'm 30. And so, you look at that vitality. I've gotten that vitality. That's what they've gifted me with, and that's what they do for people. So the documentary is very personal. We kept it under an hour, so it's 58 minutes, and we've just been blessed with. We won 3 Cannes Film Festival awards, and we're continuing to win awards. We just won Best Health Film at the Documentaries Without Borders International Film Festival. So it's been a wild ride. It's been very humbling and just very surreal. So I feel like I have held up my end of the bargain of being a good steward of these plants.